as with every update that introduces a character into the mix, Genshin's 4.5 update will include 2 brand new weapons, one being the signature of the newest 5-star unit and the other from the next event. But are these weapons worth building? Where do they work? And who do they work with? Before I answer these questions, subscribe. Cookies. Yum. Now let's move on, starting with Chiori's signature 5-star sword. Uraku Misugiri offers a low attack stat and a high crit damage substat. The passive increases defense by 20 to 40% based on refinement and increases the user's elemental skill damage by 24 to 48% based on refinement and normal attack damage by 16% to 32% also based on refinement. Additionally, the skill and normal attack damage bonus will be doubled when an ally deals a geo damage. This proves to be a crazy good stat spread all around, as it offers high offensive stats for both on and off-field units. The issue is, it's not that good for units that deal most of their damage through their elemental burst. This leaves us with a select few that can actually use this weapon pretty decently. For Chiori, obviously it's her best in slot. Signature weapons usually are, and this one is no different. It's a massive damage increase for her at all levels and will usually be her best first off vertical investment option. It's also the best in slot weapon for Albedo, as it's normally about 2 to 8% better than Cinnabar Spindle depending on how much of his skill's damage is being used. The more burst damage he does, the better Uraku Misugiri is. The more skill damage he does, the better Cinnabar is. As a rule of thumb, if you like Albedo and have Cinnabar Spindle, don't get it. If you don't have Cinnabar, then and only then can I recommend it. But those are 2 units that focus solely on their elemental skill damage. A unit that uses both would be Alhaitham. For him, this is his second best option in most cases. Usually he won't be paired with a Geo member. Don't consider this to be his second best option, that's behind his signature only by a few percent. Keqing is Electro Alhaitham. However, this weapon is not better than Mistsplitter. Keqing loves dealing charge attack and elemental burst damage, which this weapon provides none of. Despite this, it still contends with Mistsplitter for her when she's paired with Zhongli, but outside of that, it's not that great and winds up being worse than Jade Cutter in most situations. For Ayato, this weapon will be at best on par with Jade Cutter, as they do similar things. Uraku Misugiri provides a normal attack damage bonus and a lot of crit, while Jade Cutter provides the same amount of crit, plus a flat attack damage bonus and HP percent, which he then turns into a flat damage amount on his normal attacks. This weapon is a good upgrade for him, but only if you don't have any other 5-star sword. If you do have his signature or Jade Cutter specifically, it's not worth it since they're on par or better. However, it is still in his top 5 best weapon options. For Furina, this one is one of her better weapons, but it's specifically amazing at C6. At C0, it's competitive with other weapons and becomes her second highest damaging weapon when a Geo member is in the party. But when at C6, this becomes her best in slot when paired with a Geo unit and will usually be better than Jade Cutter even without. This is a similar situation to when she triggers Vaporize. However, Key of Kajnasut will surpass both of them because it is and forever always will be her best in slot weapon option. Last up, there's Nilou as a main DPS unit, where this is one of her best weapons. At worst, it's about as good as Jade Cutter and her signature weapon, but at best, it's just behind a max-stacked Splendor of Tranquil Waters. So, all around, this sword is pretty good. The high crit stat it offers allows it to keep up with many other weapons in the game. However, it will never be better than both Mistsplitter and Jade Cutter for most characters unless the passive condition is met. Haran is still better on normal attacking units overall though, due to the significantly larger normal attack damage bonus plus the extra all-type elemental damage bonus. The only situation where this weapon is consistently incredible is when the unit that's using it deals almost all of their damage through their elemental skill, including Chiori, Albedo, Furina, main DPS Nilou, Alhaitham, and a main DPS Bennett. But the other 3 powerful 5-star swords will prove to be much more versatile, while also being about just as good, if not better, in the situations where Uraku should be strong. This weapon isn't the only weapon we are getting. We're also getting a polearm called the Dialogues of the Desert Sages. This stat stick offers an average base attack and an average HP percent substat. This makes it the 4th polearm in the game to offer HP, and it offers the second most HP of those polearms, as it's behind only the Black Tassel by 5.6%. Additionally, when the user heals any party member, the user restores 8 to 16 energy to themselves based on refinement. This effect can only occur once per 8 seconds and can occur even while the user is off-field. This might sound very similar to another polearm we received recently, but there are a few key differences. Unlike Dialogues, Rightful Reward requires the user to get healed to activate its energy generating passive, while this one requires the user to heal. This means that units other than healers can use Rightful Rewards passive, like Toma and Candace. While Dialogues is not super versatile, it does make up for that by being specially made for healers. Dialogues can be activated twice every rotation because every polearm healer has a 12-second or longer duration on their healing effects. This will normally not happen with Rightful Reward, since the healer would have to take up on-field time, or they would need off-field team-wide healing in order to pop the effect twice. So not only does this staff have more HP for healers to scale with than Rightful Reward does, but it also regens double the energy as it can too. This new weapon would reduce Mika's burst cost from 70 to 48 or 33 if he's at C4, Yaoyao's from 80 to 58 or 43 once at C2, and Chevreuse from 60 to 38. This is incredibly powerful for these healers, as this weapon will act as a personal Favonius Lance while also increasing their HP that their healing and other HP scaling effects will benefit from. But that doesn't mean they should all swap over to it, since there is one other incredibly powerful polearm in the game that every support wants to use. Fav's main draw is the extra energy generation it grants the team. This is incredibly important for all units because everyone has energy requirements, and reducing these energy requirements can increase the damage these characters deal. This extra energy generation lets other units build into the actual stats they want without having to worry about getting their burst up consistently. These weapons change the game and have been the best in slot polearms or support characters since the launch of the game. So instead of comparing Rightful Reward to Dialogues of the Desert Sages on these three characters, I'm instead going to compare it to Favonius Lance, starting with Mika. Mika will usually be paired with the likes of Eula, who needs crazy good batteries in order to function to some degree. Mika is a healer that relies on his burst to function, as that's his main way to heal. Mika has a burst cost of 70 with a below average particle generation, making it hard for him to directly funnel energy into himself without a massive amount of energy recharge stats. While he does have HP scaling on his heal, he does not have any HP scaling outside of that. Additionally, he has a multi-hit skill to help him activate Favonius Lance's passive effect. So while Dialogues would be great for him by a pure healer standpoint, it's not better for him than Favonius Lance, since he and his teams rely on it much more, and he has easy access to its passive. Up next, we have Yaoyao, who has 3 ways of healing her team in her kit. These 3 ways of healing her team effectively means her healing uptime is permanent, which allows her to easily activate Dialogue's passive. Her strongest means of healing is behind her burst too, since the numbers are larger and it's team-wide. Her burst is also the only means she has of instant on-demand dendro application, as her rabbits are rather random and they take a bit to start applying dendro. All of this means that she almost always needs to use her burst. However, she has an 80 burst cost and generates the average 5 particles per rotation, which will pretty much only happen while she's off-field, granting her massive energy issues. Despite this, the teams that she's best used in are Nilou Bloom teams and an Aggravate comps that usually don't require a lot of energy funneling. Additionally, her 4th constellation converts her HP stat into Elemental Mastery, which in turn allows her to deal more damage. On top of that, the damage she does deal outside of her burst is delayed, meaning she will usually have a harder time triggering Favonius Lance's passive than other units will. So when considering her trouble activating Fav, her reliance on HP for more than just her healing, and her team's unreliance on energy, the Dialogues of the Desert Sages will usually be better than Favonius Lance on Yaoyao. However, in teams that do require energy generation, like when using her alongside Sino, Favonius Lance is still a good option. And finally, we have Chevreuse. Chevy is the only other polearm healer left, yet she doesn't have any energy issues. Her burst is simply just AoE damage with some grouping capabilities. It has a 60 burst cost, and she generates 4 particles on demand. Since she's not reliant on energy herself, she can use her own particles to help battery a unit that needs them more. Additionally, her C1 helps battery her team even more, as it can reduce their energy requirements by 12. On top of that, she pairs insanely well with the battery units that are part of the electro element, so her teams will almost never have energy issues. She also has her Ascension 4 passive effect that converts her HP stat into an attack percent buff for her entire team. While Chevy can very reliably activate the passive effect for Favonius Lance, especially once at C2 and C4, which gives her extra instances of damage, Favonius Lance will usually offer an overly excessive amount of energy to the team, with only her consistent noblesse buffing to make up for it. So, Dialogues will usually be the better weapon for her, as it will increase increase her HP beyond her threshold requirement while also making her burst much more consistent like Favonius Lance does. All in all, these weapons are pretty good, though pretty niche. One is a very powerful DPS sword that's best used on elemental skill damaging units, while the other is the new best healing polearm in the game. However, one is a 4-star that you get for free, while the other is a 5-star that you have to gamble for. In my opinion, this is fine for a free-to-play weapon since it's readily obtainable, but the new 5-star is simply a crit damage trap. Most people, when looking at 5-star weapons, see crit and ascend to a higher plane of existence. Think of Furina's weapon for instance. It's good at C0, but it's debatably not her best in slot there, and falls off hard the more constellations and refinements she gets. On top of that, it's not that good on almost every other unit, as it just offers crit damage. My warning to you is to not fall into this trap. This weapon is better than the Splendor of Tranquil Waters, but when considering how niche the weapon and the character it's tied to are, plus the fact that the other, more versatile swords out there will usually be better or on par with this one, I cannot recommend anyone pick this up unless you're a Chiori lover. The new polearm though, I recommend everyone to build. It's amazing on 2 of the best 4-star healers in the game and will still be a top 3 pick for other healing polearm characters that might come out in the future. But those are just my thoughts. What do you all think? Do you still plan to gamble for the niche 5-star weapon? Were you considering it, but I dissuaded you? Do you think these weapons have more applications than I've mentioned? Tell me your thoughts in the comments down below. But with that, I will get out of your hair. Thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to see you all next time. Bye bye!